Ron, thanks so much for coming on the show. I know you're extremely busy. You came to Kelowna in 1990 from Edmonton. Tell us the story of how you got here.
Well, thanks for this opportunity. Yes, and it's a bit of a journey, and we all have a life story. And growing up in Edmonton, we had the youngest of four boys, and played lots of sports and involved in business. We had our own convenience store gas station, and then I played in a band for a number of years as well, and weekend parties. And in the end of November 24th, 1989, my mom passed away suddenly of AIDS, and my mom's mother, my Baba, died about a month later, so right after Christmas. And I played in the band New Year's Eve, January 1st. We woke up to typical Edmonton weather, about 30 below and 3 feet of snow. And we had two children at the time, my wife Cindy and I. Been married since 1984, and we thought, well, let's see about life outside the Kelowna, or in the Okanagan. We'd come here on our honeymoon, and my wife's aunt and uncle had bought the first show home up in Dilworth, actually, and they're still there. It was back in '89. We had visited them briefly, so we got here first week of January, and had a realtor, Fred Meyer, a great guy, still selling real estate, helped us find a home under construction. And about a week later, we were back in Edmonton telling family and friends we're moving to Kelowna. I didn't have a job or anything, and they thought, you're crazy, right? And so March of 1990, we pull up, and a new house was built, and it's just been an incredible life experience since then.
Right. You've seen a ton of changes in the city. I've only been here 7 years, but I'm sure you've seen a ton of changes. What are some of the big changes you've seen to the city of Kelowna?
Well, personally, we had two children at the time. The third one was born here. Daughter Amy is just turning 28 this month, and we have 28, 30, and 33. So our three daughters grew up here. We have 5 grandchildren, 4 grandsons, and a granddaughter. We're blessed all within a few minutes drive, walking distance from our home. So it's great for a family, and we've promoted that. And how I got basically where I am today, I was working in a couple of businesses in Vernon. I was the business manager for a fellow who I was contacted from that contractor in Edmonton. A contractor here said, well, the fellow in Vernon has a couple of dealerships and needs a business manager. So I did that for a while. I was involved in the auto industry. And then my background is in marketing. I have a marketing diploma from Nate in Edmonton, and Costco was opening up, so they hired me as their marketing rep. And then early 91, and then worked with them for a couple of years and traveled through the Thompson Okanagan, helped set up Kamloops, and then they wanted me to travel more, and we had a third child at that time, and I said, well, I wanted to be home more. So I worked in the warehouse, and I didn't like it. I love Costco, but I just didn't like working in a warehouse. So then I ended up working with the Daily Courier for about 4.5 years in advertising sales. And then it was a union environment. They had strike, and we ended up taking a buyout. 96, I took a month off, traveled with the family out through Nashville, Memphis, all through the music land, and we had a great time. Came back and had a couple of opportunities. One I was looking at working at that time before I left. The developer was starting Kettle Valley. He said, well, go to Nashville, look at this neo-traditional subdivision there, and this is what we want to sort of create in Kettle Valley. And I said, oh, looks great. It came back, and I really like it. I said, but your price point has to be under $200,000, considering you're way out there in Kettle Valley, right? At the time, it was the boonies. And said, no, we're going big. And they started like $299 to $329. So
what year was that?
That was 1996.
Wow.
Yeah. So then what happened is a group of folks got together that asked me to run for city council, and I didn't have a lot of political experience or knowledge. So I said, well, let's do some research. And I went to the library on the advice of one of the city councilors at the time, Joe Leask. He said, go to the library, get this book, How to Run for Public Office and Get Elected. Right. It was basically a marketing manual 101, and implemented a plan that took John F. Kennedy's slogan, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I substituted the word community. Right. I went door knocking, and fortunately I came in 5th, and it's been an incredible experience ever since.
So the way it works is the top, I think there's 13 now, councillors, and the top 13 get a seat. Is that?
Well, actually, Kelowna doesn't have a ward system, so there's eight overall, and the mayor. So it's been that way for a number of years. So the top 8 voters for council, and then, of course, the number one voters, the one that gets the most votes for mayor is the chair of the board for it used to be 3-year terms, now it's 4-year terms. So we had 3-year terms, 96, 99, and then 2002 was the city councillor up until 2005.
Right. And then you ran for federal parliament.
Yeah, it was another, once again, was never belonged any party politics as per se, and it was March of 2005, KF Aerospace, formerly known as Kelowna Flightcraft, was at an announcement. They just received a significant federal announcement, and I got a phone call from somebody from the Conservative Riding Association asking me to consider putting my name for it, because Werner Schmidt, who was the member of parliament at the time, was retiring, and I asked what I have to do, and they said, you got to sell memberships, get your members out to the nomination meeting, and whoever gets the most votes wins. And we had 7 people that day in May of 2005 at KSS School. There's about 2,000 people there, and it was great experience. And Norm Letnick came in second, and Ben Stewart third, and still remain friends. And they're in provincial politics today. So.
Mm-hmm. Which one did you like better, City Council or Ottawa?
That's a great question. I think they're two different sort of entities. I mean, the opportunity to be local and, you're closest to the people and you have direct results. But the experience and opportunities I had on a federal perspective were, something I'd never imagined in my life. I spent almost 9.5 years on the International Trade Committee, got to travel the world and help expand the markets for Canadian businesses, and then had some experience to spend time on the Finance Committee, Veterans Affairs, a couple other committees along the way. So it was the people you got to meet, the individuals are, to me, life is about relationships, and I, have built a lot of relationships that we have today, and something, like I said, I could never imagine. It was hard from a family's perspective because you're away almost half the year. The Parliament's sitting about 26 weeks of the year, so you'd leave on a Sunday afternoon and get to Ottawa and sometimes 1-2 in the morning, depending on the flight delays. There's no direct flight, so come home Thursday night, same thing, arrive home around midnight, go to Rotary, Sunrise Rotary. They met, Friday morning at the yacht club, or now we met at the Golf and Country Club, and you start your weekend Friday meeting with constituents. Friday evening there's some event, and Saturday try to spend a few hours with your family. Saturday evening there's another event. Right. Sunday we go to church and hit the reset button and go back on the plane and do it all over again.
Yeah, and you're still today. You're on all kinds of committees and Chamber of Commerce stuff. Tell us how do you jug up it all? How do you get everything done in a day? Well,
I got an amazing wife. My wife Cindy, she's a great support team. I said if I was her, I would have left me a long time ago. But been almost 34 and a half years we've been married, and seriously, she's been very understanding, because it takes a team to do a lot of these initiatives. And today I have a consulting company. One of my main contracts is with an Interior Savings Credit Union. They create a position called the Business Relationship Manager, and I help this business development and community relations, working in a variety of capacities. I mentioned on the Chamber of Commerce as their vice president and chair of the policy committee, working through another foundation called the Kelowna Foundation. Our first major project, we're developing a Child Advocacy Centre for children that have been abused physically, emotionally, sexually. That'll be located right next to the Foundry. Mm-hmm. And then I do some consulting work with developers in the wine industry. I used to be co-chair of the Wine Caucus in Ottawa, which sounds pretty interesting. I'm not a wine connoisseur, but it's all policy and that. So I'm helping Summerhill Winery working on an expansion and an exciting project that'll be coming forward here in the next few months as well.
So what kind of help do they need with expansion?
Often it's government relations, understanding the process, and the joke was there's 2 speeds government works: glacier slow and reverse. Right. So you have to be patient sometimes, and for folks in the private sector that can be quite frustrating. And so it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's about the contacts, it's the relationships you've built over time, and to me, leadership is about integrity, and life is, about that, building that trust and working through those contacts to help them move through. I also went back to university after losing the 2015 election and went back to University of Ottawa and received the Institute of Corporate Directors Rothman School of Management ICD designation, which I'm now a director for about 3 years on the Land Title Survey Authority of British Columbia, as well as a director in a couple of public and privately operated companies, ones doing some development on First Nations land. And it's exciting, and I have time for my wife and family and the grandchildren, and my other passion is playing drums.
Right. Have you always been a drummer?
Since when I had hair, I
Right.
let my hair down. About 13 years old, I was 14. Grade 8, I started taking drums. I was taking trumpet, and before that, it was really cool. I was playing the accordion for about 3 years. So I have an accordion buried in the basement, but my wife usually only lets it come out about midnight on a Saturday night with my brother and playing dueling accordions with the Schmakey brothers or something.
Right. Did you ever have dreams as a teenager that you'd be part of a band and
Yeah, I mean, the fact is we had recorded an album in 1983 at a studio called Homestead Recording Studio in Edmonton. Larry Wanigas was the owner and manager, and he says, well, we're just doing this for a little fun, get 500 albums to see who go distribute to the radio stations and see how it goes. But he's talking to me and telling me, I got this up and comer. She's pretty young, but I think she's going to be pretty good. I think I'm going to go with her. Her name's Katie Lang. Well, he dumped us, and of course he went with her and became her manager, and the rest is history with Katie Lang. So.
Yeah, so things could have turned out.
Hallelujah!
Right?
Yeah, no, it's God has a plan and a purpose for everybody, and I've been blessed to have the route that I've been on, and I look back in the rearview mirror of life sometimes, and how did I get there?
Yeah,
only by the grace of God go I.
Right. So. You got a title, so you're part of the Queen's Privy Council. How does one get that title? You're referred to as Honourable Ron Cannan now.
Yeah, the abbreviation for Honourable is HON.
Right.
So my wife says, hey, hon, take the garbage out. Right. So a lot of respect. But yeah, it is actually an interesting story. It was in July of 2012. I got a phone call. I was having lunch with another colleague who was cabinet minister and a few other people in Kelowna here, and it was the Prime Minister's office calling, saying that the Prime Minister Stephen Harper was forming a new committee, government operation, and he wanted to appoint me to this cabinet subcommittee. So as being part of a cabinet, you then have to go through a whole process of confidentiality and security checks, and also being sworn into the Privy Council, which is a real honor and a distinguished honor, I guess, is the fact that there's very few. I think Stockwell Dale is in Kelowna, and there's a couple of us. But what it means is it's a title that you have for life, and you can be referred upon by the government of the day if there's anything specific for information. But it also has allowed me access to cabinet meetings, so cabinet discussion, there's subcommittee on cabinet government operations. So I had an input in budget deliberations, etc. And it was another inside world of politics, because when you're a backbencher, which means you don't have a cabinet position, you really don't see the inner circles. But having a chance to go into a room with the big cabinet table holds 35, 40 people, and the Prime Minister there, and you realize the magnitude of decisions you're making, and when the budget comes out, you see the fruits of your labor and implement it. It's another memorable experience that I'm, obviously took very seriously, but honored to have that chance.
Yeah. So the Prime Minister makes recommendations for that Privy Council?
Yes, absolutely. The Prime Minister is there, and you're sworn in by the Governor-General at Rideau Hall. It's a ceremony. I was with one other, my colleague Mike Lake, myself, my wife and family were all able to attend, and it was a nice, quiet ceremony that was officially sworn, handed the Bible, and take an oath of office, and basically represent, the Queen's representative is the Governor-General in our Commonwealth Parliament system. So it works through the House of Commons, and then the Senate is the other bicameral system in our legislation process, and working with the Senate and members of Cabinet, as well as our caucus as a whole, and which was another whole experience. That a chapter of life I never envisioned, that's for sure.
Right. So when you first got elected in 2006 to the federal parliament, did they have some sort of an orientation? Like you get to Ottawa and it's like, where do I go? What do I do?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's so I'd been to Ottawa once as a family vacation. We took the motorhome trip across to Quebec and then down through the States, and then I've traveled every province. I haven't been to in every territory except Nunavut. So we're working on getting up there and a little bit of more Maritimes. But being in Ottawa once was just on a vacation. We took the motorhome at that time on Parliament Hill, which was back in 1999, and it just like it was a dream as a kid. I'm in this beautiful venue. That's kind of like going to the NHL for me, and I thought, wow, that'd be really cool one day. And my kids and come on, Dad, let's go. I'm sitting there and in La La Land. Anyhow, when I got there, I still remember that day back in 99, 2006. We're there, and there was a session for both the new members of Parliament and spouses. You sit down because you have to find a place to live, and you're basically have two homes. And there was an opportunity. We were living in a hotel for a while, then eventually bought a condo, and some people did that later on, and it's building a whole new structure. So I had to find staff. I worked with the previous member of Parliament. Advice from Werner had a good reputation and great staff as well. So hired a couple of his staff and looked at trying to make your own sort of team. So we had 4 staff, and you get an office, you got to get it all set up, and so you got to find out where the bathroom is and all those things. Right. Like the old saying, drinking out of a fire hose. It's just information overload.
Right.
And that took almost probably the first year.
Yeah, must have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and meeting of the staff. And I love to take constituents on tours of Parliament because you meet with a lot of the staff, and they're proud of their job, they're proud of their Parliament building, proud of their country, and it does. I tell everybody, if you've never been to the Parliament buildings, it's something in one of those bucket list items. Mm-hmm. Right now, actually, the Centre Block is going to be closed down probably for about 10 years. The West Block and East Block are the 2 wings, but West Block was retrofitted into the new House of Commons where Parliament will be sitting for the next several years. So I haven't seen that yet. I'm looking forward to going back one day and taking a tour of the new House of Commons as well.
Right. So you ran as a Conservative. Is there something in your personal philosophy that made you choose the Conservative Party?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very interesting question in that respect, because I always say there's no perfect politician, no perfect political party or leader, because we're all imperfect people. But you look at some core fundamental values. I grew up in a home, the youngest of 4 boys, and you live within your means. So fiscal conservatism was one big value, and social conservatism. Well, believe in the sanctity of life, and at that time was the whole issue of same-sex marriage and trying to deal with. In fact, I mentioned my mom and dad were married for over 37 years and had issues with their relationship down the way, but I didn't judge them. I loved them and knew that God loves them as a Christian. We're meant to love everybody, and whatever your sexual preference is, I said that's a very personal matter, and a public display isn't necessary. I mean, continue on with life and being as less judgmental as possible, and we all live sort of within a certain lens. Mm-hmm. But yeah, ultimately it's working through all that to say that it was kind of those are the key points that took me there. And I'd never met Stephen Harper, and during the camp after the nomination in May of 2005, we thought we might have an election. At that time, Belinda Stronach decided to cross the floor from the Conservative to the Liberals, and it prevented an election. So it was until January of 2006 when we had the election, and right around just between Christmas and New Year's in December, I think 27th or so, Stephen Harper, I got a call from the campaign team that he might be coming here, or he might be going to the Kootenays. I think it was Castlegar. Mm. And in the morning they said, no, he's going to be going to Castlegar. So our team just carried on for a day. And then about 45 minutes later, I got a phone call. I said, well, they can't land in Castlegar. it's named Councilgar for a reason.
Right.
Fogged in, so the Prime Minister to be, the leader of the Conservative Party, was flying into Kelowna, going to go see my colleague, Salmon Arm, Colin Mays, who was the candidate there, and he'll be coming here. So we had to get our group back together. And first time I met him, and probably one of the most strategic gentlemen I've ever met in my life. And he's very down to earth. And he and his wife Lorene and Ben and Rachel, a wonderful family. And it was just one of those things that people, once again, how they judge somebody based on how they're portrayed in the media. But if you have a chance to sit down and have a chat with him, you'd be very impressed.
Yeah. So I guess I get a lot of confidence, and it was exciting times because he was about to win, and you won. Yeah,
so it was the first time that we got a minority government in 06 and in 08 as well, and then 2011 when we got a majority government. That was the strong, stable majority Conservative government, as the saying was going, and we had a chance to govern until 2015. And some would say that they feel Stephen Harper served past his. Everybody has a best before date or expiry date. It's that's the issue of politics. We had a good ride, and we provided a lot of good policies, and like I said, some that weren't as probably the best managed policies or implemented policies. But there's no perfect party, as I said earlier. Overall, we were it was great to have that opportunity and that experience, and we'll see what happens next year in the election if the Conservatives can get back in office.
Right. What do you think of Andrew Scheer, the new leader?
Andrew is a very he's a wonderful family man as well. I think he's 5 children, and he's got he and his wife were always available in Ottawa. The Speaker of the House, he was the youngest Speaker in the House, and fully bilingual, and this guy's a very, very nice gentleman. So I think as far as the leadership of our parties in good, and the state of our country is in good shape, he'll make a great Prime Minister come 2019 if the people are fortunate to see that it's his turn.
Mm-hmm. So you're done with federal politics?
Yeah, unfortunately, my wife got hit by a car on May the 8th, 2014. It was my birthday. She called me in the morning in Ottawa. It's about 10 in the morning. 7 o'clock here, and I just came out of a committee meeting, and she wished me happy birthday, said it was a nice day, and she just thought she might go for a bike ride. One of our daughters teaches at Spinco, and she sometimes goes down there in spin class, but she was going to go for a bike ride instead on the road, which we had a little regular routine we went to, and about an hour later I got a phone call. She'd been hit by a car just off of Glenmore Road, and life's changed. It's been 4 years and 4 months now dealing with ICBC and working through the process and trying to get her healing. But it prevented me from, I had to change career paths in that respect. If I, unless I wanted to be selfish and love my wife, and our relationship's worth more than that. So I said, well, okay, I'll be here to help you. You've been there for me all the time. Help you however I can, and it's been, the issue of great support, the medical support, and trying to work through the healing of chronic pain is something that anybody experienced chronic pain. It's something that can be very difficult to manage. And she's said to my wife's like a 1957 Chevy. The body looks great, but still need work under the hood. So We're working on it, and she's got a great attitude, strong faith, and said prayer and positive thinking and perseverance, and help her through.
Nice. Well, I want to wish you and Cindy and your children all the best. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I think we got to know you well on a personal level in the short time we've had. So thank you for that. Who would you like to nominate to come on the show in the future?
I'd like to invite Tom Dias. He was the past president of the Chamber of Commerce for 2 years, and he served on the board for 8 years. I'm vice president of the chamber now. As I mentioned, worked really closely with Tom, and I think he's done an incredible job as a single dad raising 3 amazing children, and been a great contribution to our community. I think you'd like to hear his story as well. Great.
And I understand Tom is running for mayor, so I'd like to ask him about that, and that's great.
I think that'd be great. And we've got a couple of mayoral candidates, and that's the great thing about democracy. The issues can be discussed, and the people will decide.
Exactly. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. God bless.
Luke Mankus is a realtor. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent, and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Mankus a call or a text message at any time, 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273. 778-215-4273 to chat with Luke about real estate.